Kamaster, paki-subscribe naman yung channel ko at paki-click ang notification bell para ma-update kayo sa susunod nating gawing video. At kung tapos na, maraming salamat po.
3,000 years ago. Today, there are more than 12,000 pawn shops operating in the United States alone. The gold and silver pawn shop that is located in Las Vegas could be easily referred to as the most popular one thanks to a famous TV show called Pawn Stars that debuted in 2009. The series follows the daily activities of Rick Harrison and his family, depicting both their interactions with customers and interpersonal conflicts as they run the well-known shop. The idea of discovering what an item's value is has given viewers so much excitement, which is why millions of people tune in week after week hoping to see something unique and amazing, as well as whether or not the Harrisons will make the right call when it comes to the value and the authenticity of a certain item. Over the years, the show has seen some incredible and rare items come through their doors, and while some turn out to be really good copies without any value, more often than not, people walk in offering an item that is worth tens of thousands of dollars. So, among guitars, cars, silver, jewelry, coins, or autographs, let's have a look at the top 10 most expensive deals they ever made. In the Season 7 episode called Close But No Cigar, a piece of presidential history walked into the shop and immediately blew Rick away. That came as no surprise since the piece had belonged to one of America's most respected and loved former presidents, John F. Kennedy. So even if it was just a cigar box that once sat on JFK's desk in the Oval Office, it still had a pretty high value, especially to his admirers. The box even included some unsmoked cigars that had great value on their own. Those were the same Cuban cigars among 1,200 that JFK had secured for himself just hours before signing the Cuban trade embargo in 1962. Both Rick and the seller knew that, so both were aware that the price wouldn't be low. The seller was seeking $95,000 for the box, but after some hard negotiating, Rick managed to lower the price down to $60,000, which was a massive steal, since another of JFK's cigar boxes had been sold for over $500,000 back in the 90s. Good call, Rick. If you're a good bargainer and a professional at your work, then flying across the country for a specific coin requested by a customer isn't that big of a deal. In Season 12, a regular told Rick they would be willing to pay roughly $70,000 for an extremely rare 1950 Panama-specific octagonal $50 gold coin, which was enough for Rick to pack his things and go to Florida's biggest coin show and find it. Aside from the rarity factor, these coins had an extreme historical value, being created by the U.S. Mint to celebrate the opening of the Panama Canal. Rick managed to track down two of the coins at the auction and eventually managed to convince the seller to drop down the price to $67,050. He may have not made that much of a deal, but he did manage to make one of his customers very happy. In Season 7, Rick made a house call to check out a seller's 1932 Ford Roadster Model B that seemed to be in near perfect condition. The Model B was produced from 1932 to 1934 and was considered an updated version of the Model A. Though both Rick and his son realized how small the car was and that it was nowhere near a practical vehicle to drive for themselves, it was the age of the car plus its perfect condition with only 450 miles on the speedometer that got Rick interested. But it was only after Vegas car custom legend Danny fell in love with it that Rick knew he had to make a deal. After hearing the seller's best rock bottom price of $70,000, Rick started negotiating, offering him $65,000. Although the owner was very unwilling to drop the price below $70,000, the trio managed to strike a pretty decent deal of $68,250. Designed by Anthony DeFrancisi, a 1922 proof piece dollar is considered as one of the most popular U.S. coins by coin historians. Despite the fact that this particular dollar is frequently described as one of the rarest coins in American history, somehow a man brought it to the shop claiming he had won it in a poker game. The seller believed the coin, one of only 10 to 12 left in existence, to be worth around $20,000, which is why he was blown away when an expert told him the actual value of $100,000, providing it was in mint condition. Much to his surprise, the lucky seller got more than expected when Rick offered him $80,000, leaving both parties to walk away happy. There aren't that many things Rick loves more than when a celebrity guitar ends up in the shop. That was what happened when a man showed up with his 1941 Gibson SJ200 guitar, previously owned by rock and roll legend Stephen Stills. Stephen Stills was a member of the rock and roll group Crosby, Stills, and Nash, and is a legendary guitar player, so Rick immediately knew he had to have it. After seeing the original bill of sales, signed by the man himself, Rick thought it was almost too good to be true, so he needed to consult an expert. Jesse, his local guitar expert, loved the guitar and even let the owner know how much he was impressed. The guitar itself was worth $75,000 at least, but being owned by Stephen Stills turned that price up another $20,000. It was a no-brainer for Rick, so after some negotiating, he was ready to make a deal for $85,000. In season 5, a guy came to the shop claiming to be American guitarist Mary Ford's nephew and carrying a guitar that was invented by her husband, Les Paul himself. Les Paul was one of the original inventors of electric guitars, and together with his wife, he formed a very popular duo in the 1950s. From 1950 to 1954, Mary and Les co-wrote 16 top 10 hits and sold millions of records. This particular guitar would have been a rare and valuable instrument even without the history behind it, but considering that it came from rock royalty, this could become Rick's largest guitar buy of his career. The nephew even brought paperwork that documented Paul's on-again, off-again relationship with Gibson. Another too-good-to-be-true moment led Rick to consult someone and see how much that piece of rock and roll history is worth. The guitar expert was pretty much amazed by the item, stating that even if it was a forgery, it was the best forgery on the planet and estimated the value of $150,000. However, that was way below what Mary's nephew had in mind, but, as expected, way above Rick's offer. Eventually, they managed to set the deal at $90,000. Two of the most popular items on Pawn Stars are antiques and cars, so it goes without saying that when the two concepts get combined into one, plus with a reasonable price, there's a 100% chance it will end up in the hands of Rick and his colleagues. In season 4, an older man came into the shop wanting to sell his vintage 1932 Lincoln Roadster, and Rick immediately knew he had to go big if he wanted to ride off with this vintage beauty. The seller, who calls himself Uncle Phil, got the car from a museum a few years ago and was looking to get $100,000 for it, nothing less. With its 150 horsepower V12 engine, it was more powerful than most cars of its era, and the fact that it was still in great condition contributes to its high price. Uncle Phil was not going to negotiate until the idea of selling him gold came about. Luckily, the Harrisons keep plenty of it in their shop for trade purposes, so this spotlessly maintained car cost Rick $95,000, sending Uncle Phil home pretty satisfied. After told by his father to invest in precious metals, one man had decided to purchase over 200 pounds of silver. 12 years later, the man walked into Rick's shop carrying sacks and bags of silver and hoping to get paid for his large investment. From bars to coins, everything was pure silver. The only potential issue was a giant silver bar that might have been filled with other metals, so Rick had to test it. After ensuring that the silver was pure, Rick instantly made a deal with the man and paid out $111,000, knowing he could parcel it out himself for a healthy profit. One of the Pawn Stars' biggest purchases was when a man came in with 4 gold bars of 1 kilogram each, and believe it or not, it was a no-brainer for Rick as soon as he set his eyes on them. There is a reason Rick Harrison and the old man named their shop Gold and Silver, since according to the History Channel website, the most money Rick ever cashed out on a single deal was predictably the golden substance itself, giving a customer $128,000 for 4 1 kilogram bars. One can't deny that gold will always be high atop the list of the most valuable things in existence, and for Rick, that purchase was obviously a jackpot. In a season 15 episode, Can't Pawn Me Love, Rick went to a local gallery to find the original artwork of, according to him, the greatest child book ever, called Where the Wild Things Are. The book was published in 1963 and tells the story of Max, a boy who becomes king of a jungle land filled with wild beasts. The book's sold millions of copies and was eventually adapted into a film in 2009. Maurice Sendak's artwork is universally acclaimed and instantly recognized anywhere in the world. So, Rick couldn't help but wonder where the owner got the invaluable illustrations and why he wanted to let them go. After saying that he'd had them for a while and now wanted to pass them to someone else, the owner, Nick, offered the collection for $375,000 due to the immaculate condition of the drawings. When it comes to buying items of such a great value, Rick always reaches to get an appraisal from an expert, which was the case this time as well. When the expert said that the first two drawings were worth about $80,000 each and estimated the whole collection at $310,000, Rick started his negotiations by lowering the offer to $200,000, but that was instantly rejected. In the end, the deal was done at $250,000, still making this